So I think going into the summer and next season, Ineos' decisions have put United in a position where it's become an either all or nothing situation. Ineos either have to go out and bring in very specific players for certain roles in Amorim's system, or if they aren't going to do that, they should have just parted ways, took the financial hit, and gone in another direction. If they do what I think they may do, which is go for a middle ground where they don't sign those specific players before the start of August, ready to hit the ground running at the start of the season, I think United could find themselves in a similar situation to the one they found them in at the start of last season, where we start badly and either have to act quickly or risk wasting another season, which United simply cannot afford, both in terms of the project ahead but also financially as well. This whole be patient stuff is just nonsense. First of all, we've been patient. We finished 8th the season before last under Ten Hag, and now we're 16th or 17th, finishing back-to-back seasons with negative goal difference. And if we don't win the Europa League, it will be 3 seasons out of the last 4, 2 in a row, where we haven't qualified for the Champions League. And even in 23-24, when we did have Champions League football, we went out in the group stage. Financially, we're falling behind the other top Premier League sides, not only missing out on Champions League revenue, but also as a consequence we'll likely see sponsorship revenue begin to fall because of it. Also, as we are seeing with Gyökeres this summer, if we keep missing out on Champions League football and aren't even competitive in the Premier League, we aren't going to be able to attract the premium level targets that we should be getting. And I'm going to elaborate why this is so important for Ruben Amorim's system in just a minute. But before I go any further, if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. They've got a variety of different current season and retro jerseys, including this 2006-2007 white Manchester United away shirt with Ronaldo 7 on the back, which they did actually send me, as well as this Juventus Zidane shirt from the 90s as well, which are 2 jerseys that I have been wanting for quite a while, but were incredibly hard to find. If you use code Atlantis at checkout, you'll get a 10% discount, so I'll leave it linked in the description and in the comments section below. The thing that most people miss when they talk about being patient and building for the future is that when you sign players, they only sign 5-year deals, maybe with a club option of an extension into a 6th, but a lot of the time that does have to be mutually agreed, which means that eventually you get to the point where players aren't going to want to extend their contracts due to the lack of ambition and results at the club. Take Lenny Yoro for example. He has a contract until 2029, and whilst there is the option to extend it, it isn't a sole club option but a mutual one, which means that come the summer of 2027, he'll have just 2 years left on his contract. If Ineos get the summer transfer window wrong, Amorim starts the season bad, and Ineos either fail to make a decision early, just as they failed to do with Ten Hag and they end up sacking him too late, or they just keep him till the end of the season and we finish outside of the top 4 or top 5 and end up with no Champions League football again, now we're going into the 26-27 season in the same position that we're in now. Even if that season we do end up getting top 4 or top 5 and qualifying for the Champions League, which having finished 8th, 16th and outside the top 5 for the coming season, that would be 3 disastrous seasons in a row, and so even then it would be a big if. And so now coming into the summer of 2027, we either have to get Yoro to agree to trigger the 1-year extension in his deal, sell him that summer for a big fee, or risk going into the following summer in 2028 with just 1 year left on his contract. And if at that point he has developed as we expect him to, then you may have one of, if not both of Real Madrid and PSG interested. If he doesn't trigger the extension in his contract, we'd probably have to sell him for big money in 2027, because if we get to the summer of 2028, Real Madrid are just going to lowball us well under the 52 to 58 million pounds we would have paid. Even though we probably would still get around 30 million pounds at that point, which would still be profit on the books, as we'd probably have around 22 to 24 million pounds still left to pay on his transfer, we'd still have to replace him, and so ideally you want to be selling a player like Yoro for as much money as you can get, if you do have to sell him at all. From Yoro's perspective, why would he stay at Manchester United if year after year we struggle to even get Champions League football, barely show any ambition or standards, let alone compete for a title or Champions League? If Ineos aren't going to go for it this summer and go big in the transfer market, you also risk wasting Bruno Fernandes, who will be 31 in September. If you're just going to be patient, investing in potential, and stick it out with Amorim even if we start terribly, you might as well just sell Bruno Fernandes this summer and reinvest in 2 or 3 younger players. I mean, Ineos next season are reportedly targeting the top 6, not even having Champions League qualification as the bare minimum, and so next season Bruno Fernandes will be 32, and so he may end up being 33, 34, or even older before we even get in a position to challenge for the title. But I just don't think we can do that. Next season is make or break. Even if it doesn't start well, Ineos can't sit on their hands like they did with Ten Hag, we have to recover the season. And so this brings me on to what Ineos should do this summer, in order to make sure that this doesn't become a reality. See, the thing is, Amorim's 3-4-3 is a system that requires central midfielders, wing-backs, and a centre forward who aren't just specialised, but also have a skill set as complete as possible. In the wing-back positions on the right side, I think we're alright with Dalot as a more reliable defensive option, and Ahmad as the starting more offensive option. The left is the issue, however. We've paid £25 million for Dorgu, when really he's better suited to being the more conservative backup option like Dalot is on the right. And so I think United need to go out and get someone who has the offensive output of a wide attacker rather than a fullback to play on that left side. In the analysis video I did on Antoine Semenyo, I explained why I think he would be perfect for this role, but the fee being talked about seems to be minimum £50 million, likely closer to 60, and so unless Bournemouth can be negotiated into lowering their asking price, that deal seems like one that is going to be far too overvalued. However, Manchester United may be able to draw a massive positive from an initial negative, as with it looking likely that Real Madrid are going to move for Alvaro Fernandez now instead of Theo Hernandez, this could actually work out pretty well for United. Alvaro Fernandez has a £42 million release clause in his Benfica contract, meaning that with United's 50% sell-on clause, if that release clause is triggered, United will get £21 million. And as Liverpool are also pursuing Milos Kerkez from Bournemouth, there isn't really an obvious standout destination for Theo Hernandez, who has just 1 year left on his Milan contract and reportedly could be available for as little as 25 to 30 million euros. And so for as little as £25 million, United may be able to get themselves an elite level left wing back who would be coming in approaching his peak, with him turning 28 in September. Now in central midfield, given that Ruben Amorim only uses a double pivot, it means that both central midfielders have to not just be competent ground coverers, but also players who can move quickly both over short and longer distances, having the reading of the game as well as the intensity in their press, to be able to jump out of the midfield line quickly to get to one of the opposition central midfielders receiving the ball, whilst also being quick enough to get back goal side when the opposition look to counter quickly through the centre of the pitch. Agate is very good at the former, specialising in this type of front foot press, but the issue is if the central midfielder next to him doesn't quite have the speed or the intensity and gets to the opposition player a second or two too late, this can be the difference between United winning the ball back high up the pitch in a dangerous position and setting up the opportunity to counter directly into the space, and instead the opposition being able to play around the pressing player, leaving the other central midfielder isolated in the centre with a substantial amount of space to cover, allowing the opposition to now attack directly through the centre of United's midfield. And so athleticism, speed across the ground, intensity in the press and tackle, and also of course positional understanding and reading of the game are all essential out of possession, and any significant weaknesses in one of these areas can be a costly liability to the system as a whole. However, this is where it becomes increasingly hard to find a central midfielder who is the perfect stylistic fit to play in Amorim's midfield, because in possession, due to Amorim's possession strategy being heavily focused on playing through the centre of the pitch, even when the opposition look to compress their defensive shape narrow, as well as looking to play out of pressure in the build-up phase, the midfield double pivot also need to excel at receiving the ball side on or with their back to goal and having the first touch ball control, press resistance and the 1 and 2 touch short passing to be able to receive passes to feet and under immediate pressure effectively retain possession, but also ideally having the vision, disguised body shape and the technique to be able to split the midfield line and progress the ball forward with incisive passes into players between the lines. And so whilst Agate is a specialist in the press, it's this part of his possession game which he lacks. And so to be fair, it's incredibly hard to find a central midfielder who has a skill set complete enough to be able to do all of these to such a high level. And this is why Adam Walton is someone that I've been so adamant that United pursue. However, after Palace getting European football next season after winning the FA Cup, they may now demand more than the 65 to 70 million pounds that I initially thought he could be attainable for. If it's not Adam Walton, I do think that Ederson ticks not all but a lot of the main boxes that we need. Either alongside Agate, Bruno Fernandes or Mainu depending on the opposition, I think that works pretty well. He'd be expensive though, surely between 45 to 50 million pounds, but if it's not him, then I do have concerns that any alternative options would end up being a significant drop off. Now I will make a video going through some Walton and Ederson alternatives, so make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell and check the channel for that video. So alongside central midfield and left wing back, the centre forward position is also an area that needs a specific type of player with a very complete skill set. A target man who has the ability to link play in the middle third from direct passes from deep, whether this is into his chest, feet or head, having the physicality and the aerial ability to win those battles, with his ball control and technical ability also needing to be of a high level, alongside having the pace and ball carrying ability to run the channels and progress the ball from the middle to the final third. And obviously when in the final third, goal scoring ability through movement inside of the box, quick footwork to manipulate the ball and open up shooting angles, as well as clinical finishing ability with composure and technique of a top level striker. And preferably you'd also want someone who's aerially dominant inside the opposition's box as well. Now Gyökeres and Osimhen would tick a lot of those boxes, but if it's not one of those two, I do think stylistically Delap is a good fit, and vastly underrated because people are comparing him against two already elite level strikers, who would cost around double the price and are 4 years older. Delap isn't elite, don't get me wrong, but I think his potential is, and his skill set ticks a lot of those boxes, but at the moment on current ability, he is a level below what United would ideally want. And so if I was in charge of transfers at United, alongside Liam Delap, I'd also look to bring in Alexander Sorloth from Atletico Madrid. Now they reportedly want £42 million, but if he was attainable for between 30 to 35 million, I do think at the age of 29, 30 in December, considering you've also brought in Liam Delap for 30 million, it means that combined you're bringing in these two strikers for just over what it would cost to sign one of Gyökeres or Osimhen. And so if United do have 60 to 65 million pounds, but can't get one of those two, Sorloth and Delap would be a very good centre forward duo to have. So you've got Theo, Ederson, Delap and Sorloth for a combined 140 million pounds, who I think together all significantly improve Amorim's system. Throw in Cunha for 62 million, maybe Shirky for 20 million, and you're probably working with 50 to 60 million pounds net spend, and that's probably without even selling Garnacho. Sorloth and Theo aren't exactly the age profile you would want ideally, but United are going to have to either compromise on age or quality. People will complain that Delap isn't at the level of Gyökeres, but will then also complain that someone like Sorloth is too old. The same with Theo, but the players who are at their level and also have the skill set to be stylistic fits for the roles they would play, and are between 22 to 25, either aren't available or are just going to be significantly more expensive, so you have to compromise somewhere. And my fear is that United, primarily focused on financial reasons, are going to end up compromising far too often on quality rather than age, and so they're going to end up signing players who either aren't a stylistic fit or need time to develop in order to reach that level that is required. And next season, that difference in quality could have a significant impact on how effective Amorim's system is, with the possession and pressing systems heavily reliant on individual players performing their roles to a consistently high level. Otherwise, as I've previously explained, the drop-off could be a lot greater than with other systems. However, on the other hand, the issue becomes that because you're signing players specifically for Amorim's system, if you do have to change managers in the near future, you may have to completely restructure the squad again. And so if Ineos aren't going to go out and get elite level, or at least close to elite level stylistic fits for the left wing back, central midfield and centre forward roles, and instead want to go down a more patient route investing in potential, then they should have just parted ways with Amorim this summer and brought in another coach whose system doesn't require such specialisation. However, now that they have confirmed he will be the manager next season, even though they may be concerned that they are buying specialised players that may lead to an uncoordinated squad in the future if Amorim has to be replaced, I think they have to do it, otherwise they're just setting Amorim up for failure, not making a bold decision either way, and instead sitting on the fence in the middle and actually in the end going for the worst option of the three, which could significantly damage United next season and going forward into the future as well. So let me know if you agreed with my analysis in the comment section below, and if you want to check out any cheap, good quality football jerseys, go over to jerseyfifa.co. You can use code Atlantis for 10% off, I'll leave it linked in the description and comment section below. Also, if you want to check out my transfer plan or any of my articles, you can sign up to my Patreon and get a 7-day free trial, I'll leave it linked on the end screen now.